Sister drowned me for the throne. I returned as their worst nightmare. The cell was silent, except for the slow drip of water leaking from a cracked pipe above the toilet. Inmate Kareem Alaric sat upright on his steel bunk, eyes open, breathing shallow. He had not slept. He never did at this hour. At exactly 1 a.m. every night the same memory came back. Water. Hands. His sister's voice. His fingers curled tightly into fists as his chest rose and fell. The prison lights outside his cell flickered once, then steadied. Somewhere down the corridor, a man screamed in his sleep and then went quiet. Kareem whispered, barely audible, "You drowned me." He stood, walked to the bars, and pressed his forehead against the cold steel. The water dripping above him felt louder now, like a countdown. Every drop echoed in his skull. This prison was where they sent monsters. But Kareem wasn't born one. He was made. Before this story goes any further, subscribe to Folktales and Stories. You don't want to miss how this ends. The dripping continued, and so did his plan. The prison. Time 6 a.m. At 6 a.m. the prison woke up angry. Metal doors slammed open in sequence. Guards barked orders. Chains rattled. The air smelled of sweat, rust, and boiled food that had lost its name long ago. Kareem stepped out with the others, his posture calm, his face unreadable. He had learned early that emotion was a weakness inside these walls. Fear invited violence. Anger attracted challengers. This prison wasn't just concrete and steel. It was hierarchy. Every block had a king. Every king had enemies. And every mistake was paid for in blood, favors, or silence. Kareem walked past men twice his size without lowering his eyes. Not because he was fearless, but because he had already died once. The guards called him the drowned prince. They didn't know why. They only knew he never flinched at threats and never begged. As he took his place in line, Kareem glanced at the far end of the yard where the lifers stood together. Power clustered naturally, like predators sharing shade. He wasn't there yet, but he would be. This prison would crown him again. And this time no one would push him underwater. The man he used to be. Time. 8:30 a.m. At 8:30 a.m., Kareem sat alone at a metal table in the mess hall. Untouched food cooling in front of him. Once he had eaten from golden plates. Before prison, before betrayal, Kareem Alaric had been the rightful heir to a powerful criminal dynasty. An empire built on influence, money, and fear. His father ruled from the shadows. His word had ended wars. And Kareem had been trained to replace him. He remembered lessons whispered late at night. Power is patience, his father used to say. Never strike first. Let them expose themselves. Kareem had believed that included family. Across the table, other inmates laughed loudly, but Kareem heard only the splash of water in his memory. The river beneath the palace bridge. The cold shock. His sister's hands pressing his head down as she cried fake tears for witnesses. She had smiled while killing him. Except he survived. Barely breathing. Forgotten. Disappeared. And when he returned, the throne was gone. And the prison gates were waiting. Kareem pushed the tray away. Food was temporary. Revenge was patient. The warning. Time 10 a.m. At 10 a.m., an older inmate named Solomon slid onto the bench beside Kareem in the yard. Solomon had eyes that had seen too much and a voice that never rose above calm. Men listened when he spoke. Not because he was loud, but because he was still alive. "You're moving wrong," Solomon said quietly. Kareem didn't look at him. "I'm not moving at all." "That's the problem," Solomon replied. "This place eats men who wait too long." Solomon leaned closer. "The lifers are watching you. They know who you are." Kareem finally turned his head. "Then they know not to touch me." Solomon shook his head slowly. "Power here isn't inherited. It's taken. And taken violently." There it was. The warning. Solomon stood to leave, then paused. "Your sister's name still carries weight outside. Inside. It means nothing." Kareem watched him walk away. He whispered to himself, "It will." The first disturbance. Time 12 p.m. At 12 p.m. the first test came. A tray hit the floor behind Kareem in the mess hall. Food splattered. Laughter followed. 3 inmates blocked his path. One smiled too wide. "You dropped something, Prince," the man said. Kareem looked down at the mess, then back up. Calm. Controlled. I didn't, he replied. The smile vanished. The punch came fast, but Kareem had expected it. He stepped inside the swing, drove his elbow into the man's chest and whispered, "Not yet." Guards stormed in before it could escalate. Everyone scattered. Kareem returned to his seat, heart steady. The disturbance wasn't about dominance. It was about invitation. And he had just accepted the mistake. Time 2 p.m. At 2 p.m., Kareem made his first deliberate mistake. He walked into the lifers section of the yard alone. Conversations stopped. Eyes followed him. The air thickened. A man named Briggs stepped forward, the unofficial ruler of the block. "You're brave," Briggs said. "Or stupid." Kareem met his gaze. "I'm inevitable." The laugh that followed was cold. That night, Kareem would be punished for his arrogance. But that was the point. Consequences. Time. 11:45 p.m. At 11:45 p.m., the beating came. Not fists. Silence. They locked his cell door and turned off the lights. Water flooded the floor from the broken pipe. Slowly. Deliberately. Kareem sat as the water reached his ankles. Then his knees. Then his chest. Panic clawed at his lungs, but he didn't scream. Instead, he smiled. They thought water was his weakness. They were wrong. Realization. Time 1:10 a.m. At 1:10 a.m., the water drained. Kareem lay soaked, breathing hard but alive. He laughed softly. They had reminded him who he was. Mid-story CTA. Time 7 a.m. At 7 a.m., word spread fast. Kareem survived. Stories like this are disappearing. If you believe powerful folktales should live on, subscribe to Folktales and Stories. Because the nightmare had only begun. Escalation. Time 10 a.m. At 10 a.m., alliances shifted. Men began standing beside Kareem. Point of no return. Time 3 p.m. At 3 p.m., Kareem confronted Briggs again. This time, Briggs stepped back. The revelation. Time 6 p.m. At 6 p.m., Kareem revealed his past to the block. A drowned heir. A stolen throne. The climax. Time 12 a.m. At 12 a.m., Briggs fell. Not dead. Defeated. The prison chose its new ruler. The aftermath. Time 6 a.m. At 6 a.m., Kareem ruled without shouting. Fear did the talking. The moral and final. Time 9 p.m. At 9 p.m., Kareem stared at the dripping pipe again. Some drown once. Others learn to breathe underwater. If this story moved you, subscribe to Folktales and Stories. More dark, powerful tales are coming. And the next one may be worse.